lace up those cleats and put on those mitts. It's time for another exciting edition of Our Little Yankees Podcast. Stepping up to the mic, it's the OLYP team.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another brand spanking new episode of Our Little Yankees Podcast. Episode 5. We're rolling along, folks. This is exciting stuff. As always, I am Julian Coltree. Joined alongside, as John Sterling would put it, my compañeros, Josh Levin.
Always good to be with you guys.
Yep, and then, of course, the one and only Eric Ray Sepulveda. E-Ray, how are you?
What up? I'm good, man. I got better.
We have
a better mic. I'm just kidding. I got none of those.
We have a logo, though. We have a logo.
Yeah, we do have a logo. It is officially on the website, and that means we are officially going to start dropping episodes on Spotify and Apple Music. So you'll be able to hear us on Soundcloud. You'll be able to hear us on Spotify. You'll be able to hear us on Apple Music. And then, of course, you'll be able to see our beautiful mugs right here on the official YouTube page. So usually for the last 3 weeks, guys, we've kind of gotten down to the nitty-gritty of wasting all our time talking about the take 'em and trash 'em of the New York Yankees and what that entails for 2021. But this week, we do not have that luxury anymore, which means we kind of got to make our own storylines a little bit here in terms of what we're going to be talking about this week. So hopefully you guys are up for the challenge.
Always.
We're our own bookers. That's what we do.
That's true. You're right. Do you think you can book better than Vince McMahon, right?
Of course, anyone could book better than Vince McMahon. I hope he's not watching. I'm just kidding.
Well, if he is, then I guess we're in pretty good business because not only is he a Yanks fan, but he also loves Our Little Yankees Podcast. So we have a bunch to talk about today. We're going to talk about potential free agent acquisitions for the Yankees. There's obviously a rumor that came out this week that Gary Sanchez might not only be on the block, but if you follow the New York Post, he might even potentially be a candidate to getting released. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that last logic there, but I'll throw some potential Gary Sanchez trades you guys' way. There was Yankees Hot Stove this week, which means we are officially in the nitty-gritty of the baseball season. And then we'll kind of close things out with a non-Yankees but baseball-related topic, which is obviously that we have the Hall of Fame, which is upon us. So I'll give you guys an opportunity to kind of give me your thoughts on who might be getting in. But first things first, it was another year, another opportunity for the voters of the Baseball Writers Association to prove that they once again hate the New York Yankees. Because for those of you who were living under a rock this week or just weren't paying attention, we once again found out that DJ LeMahieu, a finalist for the AL MVP, was unjustly robbed of the MVP as Jose Abreu took it home.
Yeah, I guess we kind of disagree. I mean, obviously, look, I want DJ to win. I think he's deserving of it. It bothers me more that he didn't win last year than this year, to be honest with you, because I guess it's sort of a similar storyline with the injuries and all that, both seasons. And DJ was kind of the guy. He was the guy that carried us in 2019. But I think in 2020, he had a little bit more help with Luke Voit being healthy the whole year and leading the majors in homers. I didn't really have an issue with Abreu winning. I think, if you look at his stats, first of all, I think he played all 60 games. And if you look at the stats, they just jump off the charts. I mean, 60 RBIs in 60 games, leading the White Sox to their first playoff berth in, I think, since 2008, I want to say.
Yep, 2008. Yeah.
So I really wasn't surprised that he won. And I also didn't think it was this sort of highway robbery. I always have an issue if a guy wins an MVP when his team didn't make the playoffs, like Trout. Mm-hmm. But this season, it didn't bother me as much because at least the White Sox were very good all year and did make it to October, despite not really doing much once they got there.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'll say. And I'm glad you brought up this stats, Josh, because I do agree with you that, in my opinion, Jose Abreu did have a very good season. But I would like some consistency. A few years ago, we obviously know that Aaron Judge's stats were absolutely unbelievably off the charts. And he was still robbed. Did not win the MVP that year because of the quote-unquote, as so many people call it, Yankee bias. I think deep down in my heart, I look at the way DJ carried himself, playing only 10 less games than Jose Abreu. So DJ had 50 games. Jose Abreu had 60 games. And when I look at how the stats compare, it was, all right, you got your runs scored in almost 50 less at-bats. DJ only had 2 less runs scored. He only had 5 less hits. He only had 5 less doubles. He had a ton more RBI, ton less RBIs, but that comes with the fact that he was batting leadoff as opposed to, batting in the cleanup spot of the White Sox order. His batting average was, almost 50 points higher than Jose Abreu. His on-base percentage, 421 to Jose Abreu's 370. Slugging percentage, comparable, only 20 points or so below what Jose Abreu's was. And his on-base percentage wasn't even close. DJ was 1.01, whereas Jose Abreu was 980. So when I look at those things, and then I factor in the fact that the Yankees' big stretch this year coincided with when he hurt his hand, or their bad stretch, not their big stretch, the bad stretch coincided with when when DJ hurt his hand. I mean, that's the complete package. He has the stats, he has the batting average, he has the ability in the field, and you factor in what is most valuable mean. And you and I have always been on the same sort of this argument here with the Mike Trout situation, where it's like, how valuable can you be to your team when your 360 batting average and off the charts, holy crap, on base percentage still has your team finishing 15 games under 500. And that to me is like, I'm like, all right, I'm looking at this. In those 10 games, the Yankees stunk without DJ LeMahieu. And when he was on the field, he was by far and away their best player. Do I think that means Jose Abreu does not deserve it? No, I don't necessarily agree with that. But my robbery comes with the same ideology that it came at this point 3 years ago with Aaron Judge, which is, at this point, these writers are just not giving it the Yankees. And I think that's pretty blatant.
Well, you want to talk about that. Talk about the 2019 AL Manager of the Year award.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Because I mean, listen, we could go back and look at like 2003 American League Rookie of the Year when Hideki Matsui didn't win because he was older and a professional for a long time in Japan. But Ichiro, 2 years earlier, won the award and won MVP.
And the MVP.
Yeah. There's been other instances. Specifically that comes to mind would be 2019 Manager of the Year. Listen, I'm not the biggest Aaron Boone fan in the world. I don't think any of us are, but the job he did that season was deserving of the award. So I do think
it was Rocco Baldelli who won it. Correct?
Yeah,
that's
and of course, the Yankees made the Twins look like buffoons in the ALDS. Not that the playoffs factor into these things, but anyway, I do think there is some sort of bias against them, and I don't really understand it. I don't have as big of a problem in the 2020 American League MVP voting as I did last year with DJ not even being a finalist.
Yeah.
That was completely ridiculous to me. But listen, we all want our players to win these awards. We love them. We love DJ. We were rooting for Boone last year. We wanted Matsui to win it all those years ago. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over it because the thing that we want the most, that's more important, is the championship. But I obviously understand this is the thing to talk about.
I think he only got one first place vote, and that to me, I'm like,
that's a travesty. Now that, like, I sided, both of you guys made really good points, but I'm siding more on Josh's side, where in the sense that I don't.
Right.
Sure. No, seriously, I think in 2017. more of a robbery, right? I definitely see the inconsistency with the writers. I definitely see the bias there with the Yankees. But I think it's more of a travesty that DJ LeMahieu got one first place vote.
Yeah.
And he also got an 8th place vote, which, I mean, is another thing to talk about. But honestly, it was a very close MVP race. All 3 guys deserved it, especially in the 60-game season. Jose Abreu had a phenomenal year. And I'm not going to lose sleep over it as well. I wanted my guy to win. I wanted DJ LeMahieu to win. We all did. But Jose Abreu, as you said before, Jules, as you were naming all the statistical categories that he was leading this year, I just think that he is deserving. It's a great story. Seeing him, get emotional is always great. Just seeing where he came from, defected from Cuba, winning this MVP. Of course, LeMahieu deserved as well. Jose Ramirez, but I think it was very close, but yeah, Jose Abreu definitely deserved it in my eyes. 2017, though, we're always going to think of it as a robbery. And the reason why we want our guys to win is because the Yankees haven't won a World Series. Yeah. We're talking about
this. If they just won the damn, right?
If they just won the damn World Series for once, we wouldn't. But that's really my opinion on it.
There is a difference, in my opinion, between thinking the current winner is undeserving. I don't want to put that out there. I don't want to say that Jose Abreu is not deserving of this title. But I do think there's a blatant case of anti-Yankee bias to the point where these stats are close. I mean, give or take 10 games, you slot DJ in there. The RBIs are not going to be on the same level because that's just not the way that the Yankees play DJ LeMahieu. But everything else, rattling those pound for pound, it's like those are close to the point where it's like, what in God's name is it going to take for a Yankee player to ever win that? And 2017 is a perfect example because what didn't Aaron Judge lead in other than batting average?
He just struck out a lot.
Yeah, and he struck out a lot, and that was it. He led in almost every statistical category, and then you take DJ, who now has the batting average and doesn't have the amount of strikeouts, and now they're like, no, we're going to give it to the guy who hits a bunch more RBIs and, has the dingers, as everybody likes to say. So that's what I'm saying. There's disconnect there. I don't like that, and it pisses me off. And that's what I have to say. So there we go.
I can't argue with that part of it.
Yep. See? So at the end of the day, good for Jose Abreu. You were right, E-Ray. There is a great story behind it. And I think the White Sox, assuming Tony La Russa does not get in the way, and that's a completely different story, I think they will have the opportunity to be very good in the future.
Yeah, they have a lot of promising players, young players too, in their major league lineup and in their pitching staff and all that. So yeah, I mean they should be back into the playoffs for years to come. They may be the best team in the Central going forward, but we'll see what happens. Though. That is true. Well, yeah, we'll see what happens with them. Game. They did. That's true. That's hard to say. The Twins and the Indians both did not win playoff games in 2020, but we'll see what happens with the managerial situation there. That's a mess.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely, 100%. So obviously that was the big story as far as the start of the offseason is concerned, guys, which kind of leads us into the fact that we now have hot stove season. And for Mets fans, this is kind of every single person is in our corner right now. Because of Stevie Cohen's beautiful big bad money. But for Yankee fans right now, it is kind of, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? What are we looking for? And last week we talked about Francisco Lindor and what that kind of meant. And now this week, there is a lot of dead air. We're right before when the winter meetings are. So we haven't gotten quite into the meat and potatoes of the actual rumors. But we still have a lot of stuff to talk about. E-Ray outlined a few things in terms of our pre-show prep. So, E-Ray, why don't you bring up what you got and kind of lead us through what sort of news and notes you have for the Yankees hot season?
Yeah, so yesterday was it was yesterday, right? Last night was the first episode of the Yanks Hot Stove on the Yes Network. Shout out to the crew over there. Always a great watch. So the first thing they talked about, of course, is what we've been talking about for most of these podcast episodes is DJ LeMahieu, right? So they mentioned right from the get-go that DJ's agent is saying that he thinks DJ can get 5 years, $100 million. Of course, you have agents always, throwing out numbers. They're going to throw out the highest numbers they can just to try to set the market. Some of the analysts said Michael Kay does not think they should bring him back at any cost. He just doesn't think. So wait, I'm sorry. I'm just reading all this stuff right now. My question to you guys basically is, if it takes 5 years, $100 million, right? Would you do that? Is that too much? Well, Michael Kay was saying that is too much for the Yankees. It would hurt them financially, as we were talking about it, for payroll down the line, right, for multiple seasons. But right now, if DJ LeMahieu was going to accept a 5-year, $100 million contract with, say, the Toronto Blue Jays, who have been heavily interested in LeMahieu in these rumors, right, and some other teams, Red Sox, Mets, you name it, would you guys say, okay, we got to lock him up, do what it takes, 5 years, $100 million, or would you let him walk? And that's my question for you guys, really.
Josh, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the kind of the conversation that you have to have about every free agent, especially, LeMahieu's in his 30s now. So, it's not a no-brainer that you sign this guy to a 5-year deal. Listen, it's not my money, so $100 million, whatever, that so much doesn't bother me, paying him $20 million a year. 5 years though that does make you think, I think. I think you have to kind of maybe you don't do that, just because, we've seen how this could go sometimes when guys hit their mid to late 30s. And listen, this guy should be back here. If it takes a 5-year deal, though, I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees ultimately decide to let him walk just because of his age. It would hurt to see that happen just because of how much he's meant to the team. We kind of just spent the first, 10 minutes or whatever saying how he deserved to be an MVP the last 2 seasons. Yeah. That's going to play into it too. How much he means to the lineup and everything. That's going to really help him in his negotiations with the Yankees or any other team. So if I was Brian Cashman, though, and it was going to take that, let's say the Blue Jays offered him 5 years, $100 million, and the LeMahieu comes to the Yankees and his agent says, if you give us the same contract, DJ will come back. I would not be surprised if the Yankees decided to let him go. We can decide if that's a good decision or not. Because of how tight they are with their budget, I think that that's probably in their best interest, unfortunately, because there are other things that need to be addressed. And that $20 million for the course of five years is gonna hurt them in terms of trying to improve elsewhere.
I agree. If it's me, 5 years, $100 million, see you later.
Yeah.
Kiss him goodbye. Get out of here. It's not his fault. He's a great guy, great player. But no, I'm not paying him that much, especially when you're going to be in your mid to late 30s at that point. In my heart of hearts, I would hope that if the Yankees see, well, shit, DJ LeMahieu's getting 5 years, $100 million, let's trade for Francisco Lindor because he is younger and we can put that money into him, because that's what needs to happen. If they're not going to pay 5 years, $100 million for DJ LeMahieu, I get that. I'm okay with that. It's acceptable because of his age and because of the fact that while he has been good for these 2 great years, how many more years can he do this consistently at this level? Lindor is young. He will be controllable when you sign him. And I'm going to play off of an idea that I heard a little earlier. If you are trading for him, odds are you're speaking with his agent and talking to him about signing him. That's almost a guarantee at this point. So I think that it is realistic to think that if that is what the price tag is, then Michael Kay is spot on when he says that you should not worry about having to continue to pursue that number and that amount of years and that price tag for DJ LeMahieu.
You see, I agree and disagree, as I usually do, because my mind's all over the place. Remember the hamster?
Yeah, you're flip-flopper, bro. That's why.
I'm not a flip-flopper. That's one thing I'm not. But this is
He's pissed.
I'm pissed now.
His mouth, you saw it shut down. He was so pissed that
you got me angry. Now I need to contain myself. Okay. No, you said.
No, you don't. It's the pod. You go
that's
off.
True.
Go off.
I got it. I got to get hot. No. So, anyway. No, but DJ LeMahieu, right? Yes, if they go for Lindor, we've been talking about that for the last 3 weeks. If they don't get DJ, you got to get Lindor. Invest that money in a cheaper option. I mean, cheaper in the sense younger. Cheaper, younger in that sense. But if they don't get Lindor, then I'm okay with giving him 5 years, $100 million. Actually, you should find ways to shed that money other places on your team. Because again, DJ LeMahieu is a priority. If you're not going to get Lindor, that's future E-Ray's problem about year 3, year 4, year 5. DJ LeMahieu right now helps us this season, helps us next season. I can't have no DJ LeMahieu, and I can't have them not get Francisco Lindor. And we're having Gleyber Torres, and I saw rumors of Andron Simmons and Jose Iglesias we talked about earlier in weeks past. If you know what I mean? Like, I need to have either DJ LeMahieu or Francisco Lindor. And if it takes 5 years, $100 million, that's a lot of money. That's a lot. But it's either or. So that's where I disagree and agree.
Yeah. I feel the same. I feel the same way as you because, basically it's like you said, the chances of them having both of those guys at the start of next season are very low, but they have to have one of them. And that's what we said last week, and we'll say it again. So if LeMahieu prices himself out of your range, the next thing has to be Lindor, because while LeMahieu is a perfect fit for this team and this lineup, Lindor is not as perfect, but almost as perfect of a fit. He's the switch hitter. He's young. He can move. He can help you move Gleyber Torres back to the position he's better at playing.
And that almost is as good as DJ with the defensive side of things.
And Lindor's an outstanding defender in his own right at short. So to me, it's like, okay, LeMahieu, you get first crack at him because he's been here. He's shown you he can actually do it in New York, and he can be the best player on your team. If that doesn't work out, you pivot immediately to Lindor. But what I'm worried about is that they don't act quickly enough, and they decide, okay, well, before we can trade for Lindor, we need to see what happens with DJ. But if DJ is going to price himself out of your market, and some other team signs him, but while this is happening, Lindor is on the move, that is what scares me because, like E-Ray was saying, if we're left here talking about, Andrelton Simmons being the opening day shortstop with Gleyber moving back to second, or Gleyber stays the shortstop with somebody else coming in to play second base, maybe Iglesias or somebody along those lines, we're not going to be happy because all we've been saying, not just, since we started this podcast, but as a group of friends for years, they have to stop with the 1 foot in, 1 foot out. If you're either all in to win a championship or you're not all in to win a championship. You can't be wishy-washy with trying to do one thing, but also trying to do another. So as we say, Jules, from Breaking Bad, no half measures.
Yep. No half measures.
So
I'm a Breaking Bad guy too, by the way.
Sorry, as we would say as Breaking Bad fans, no half measures. And the Yankees have been doing half measures for a few years now. So if it's not DJ, it has to be Lindor. And if it's not Lindor, it has to be DJ. Exactly. Yep. You can't wait for the other shoe to drop. You have to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive and make sure you get at least one of these players.
Especially when, and I'm sorry, we're going to compare ourselves for now until Stevie Cohen's beautiful money runs out to the Mets, because that's what it is right now, because they are the shiny new toy with the shiny new amount of money. And there's a rumor today that Mark Chernoff, who, of course, is the program director at WFAN's son, who's currently the assistant GM or GM.
No, he's the GM.
He's the GM for the Cleveland Indians, might be rumored to take that Mets GM job, and he obviously has those connections with Cleveland. So, they're going to be players. Long gone are the days of a big market team like the Mets pretending that the Kansas City Royals, which is just another team out there that is going to be rumored. And this year, they're going to make a splash. So whether it's Lindor, whether it's DJ LeMahieu, whether it's a big pitcher like Trevor Bauer, they're players for this. And then you factor in the Red Sox, and you factor in the Blue Jays, and you factor in the multitude of other teams, you're going to get screwed one way or the other. You're the Yankees. Get out ahead of it. This is not a mid-level market team that's waiting to see what happens with it. You control the market because you are the predator. You're not the prey. You're the big dog. You're out there. You're spearing everybody. You're doing what you need to do to get job done. You're the what is it? The tribal king. So
tribal
that's
chief.
what you
Tribal
chief. You're the tribal chief. You're the tribal chief. So Yankees got to go out there and they got to do what they need to do in order to actually get this done. And that not only obviously pertains to DJ LeMahieu, but that pertains to the pitching market. It pertains to the reliever market, and it pertains to the bench buffing up, which is something that you and I, that we all talked about over the last couple of weeks, which is a great transition for E-Ray to get into the next subject.
I blacked out. What'd you say?
No, that's okay. But anyway, that's why one of us leads this pod, and
that's true. You're the guy. Wait, can I mention one more thing?
Yes.
Jules, sorry. One more thing before we go into the next segment that I have no idea what you said, because that's what, the hamster took a break in the brain. But one thing I want to say, Luke Voigt was on the hot stove last night. And Luke Voigt talks a lot, right? He talked about his injury and how his foot's doing great. He has no pain. But he also says, they asked him, so what are you feeling about DJ LeMahieu? He said in his gut, he's going to stay a Yankee. Now, I don't know whether that's a good thing or bad thing, guys, because, he's the guy that said the Yankees will win 5.
All I'm going to say is
I'll just leave that there.
I take with a grain of salt whatever Luke Voigt says, because he has consistently not only ran his mouth for things that he has no reason to run his mouth about, but he's been consistently wrong about those things. So there we go. That's my follow-up answer.
Yeah, I hope he's right, but the track record isn't good. So maybe that means Francisco Lindor.
All right. Hey, I would be hyped about it. Anyway, as E-Ray put down in his nice little agenda before he blacked out, we have 2 things to talk about with the Yankees pitching market, according to the Yankees hot stove on Yes. Jack Curry thinks that the Yankees should bring back Masahiro Tanaka, who, of course, is a free agent this year. Then John Flaherty said that he thinks that there will be a big market for Tanaka. And then Michael Kay finished off by saying he thinks that Tanaka should come back as a 3 or a 4 starter, which is something that the 3 of us have all said. So the real question becomes, do you guys think that if there is a market for Tanaka, as Flaherty kind of mentioned, that he'll take the hometown discount?
Who's to say? I mean, you can't know for sure what this guy
he should, but we don't know.
But if the market for him is as big as they suggested last night on Yes, then why would he?
Yeah.
I mean, if he's got offers for lots of money, it's a good business decision for him to take the higher offers because the Yankees in all likelihood will not be able to, pay him what he was getting paid before. Pitchers in general, the market seems to always be there because, everybody needs pitching, and this guy's a good pitcher. I'm just looking at, Drew Smyly last year for the Giants, a solid season, nothing spectacular. He just got an $11 million deal for one season with the Braves. So Tanaka's money is going to be higher than that, I would think, unless the Yankees are like, hey, this is what we can afford to pay you. We really want you here. And he's like, yes, I want to be here too. So this early signs suggest that this could be a competitive market for Tanaka, which would be a bad thing for the Yankees because eventually I think they will get outbid. I just hope that he wants that the interest is mutual, that the Yankees want him and he wants the Yankees, and they can figure out something that works. But just like we mentioned with LeMahieu, the price has to be right. If it's going to take 15, 20 million a year to bring this guy back, obviously it's a no and you have to let him go.
Yeah, I agree. The difference with LeMahieu is LeMahieu was a number 1 priority. Tanaka, in that 3-4 range, he should not be making 23 million, 20 million, even 18, 17, like you said. I'm never going to fault a guy for taking the money. I'm really not. I've never, this hometown discount. I think Tanaka really loves New York. He loves being a Yankee. He said that. We've seen him on Instagram hanging out with Garrett Cole, having double dates with Garrett Cole and his wife. He's always talked well about the Yankees. He was a good Yankee here. But I would never fault him if he gets a good offer somewhere else. Whether it's whether it's the Mets or the Red Sox, I hope not. I really hope not. I don't want them to take our guys, but I'm never going to fault that because, it's a business decision and you got to get money. It's money in your pocket. You know what I mean? But yeah, I've said this before. I made a song about it that I can't say on this podcast. It's a good song, by the way. It's a very cute song, I'll say.
People will never know, but
they'll never know. If they want, they can, text me, even though they don't have my number. I'm also not going to give that out here today.
I might put it on the lower third when I do the editing.
That is true. You better not, but we'll talk about that offline. But yeah, man, I mean, we've said it before. Tanaka, as a 3-4 guy, we want him here. We don't want him here as a number 2, but as a 3-4 pitcher, we want him to stay home. We love this guy. We love our little Masa. So
You're
yeah.
a little out of breath. You were a little out of breath there.
I am. That's how I'm fascinated and with Tanaka. I really do love him.
Yeah. All right.
I do.
Calm down.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I'm kidding. I agree with you guys. The only thing that's like to me, and this is what's so annoying about this, every single guy, and you've obviously both have noticed this too, we're saying the same thing, which is like, if you guys can't afford them, then don't go after them. But it's like, are the Yankees even going to go after people who we want them to go after?
No.
It's like, all right, and that's the annoyance thing. You answered my question, Josh. We want them to go get Charlie Morton, right?
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah, we all do. So, all right, let's say that the market for Charlie Morton is 1 year, $15 million with an option for a second year. We would like that. And maybe in a little bit of a realm of possibility, that's more or less affordable than Tanaka. But it's like, they're not going to make those decisions, or at least it seems like to us, based off of what we kind of know about the way they've handled their business the last 3 years, that they're not willing to kind of meet in the middle with the fan base of what we want versus what the pitchers and the position players want versus what they want to do. So at this point, I could talk until I'm blue in the face about how I would love Tanaka back as a 3 or a 4 if they can afford him. But it's also like, all right, well, if they can't afford him, what's the other option? The other option that they're going to go out there and get somebody that we really want them to get. And the answer is probably no. They blew all their cash load last year with Garrett Cole, who, don't get me wrong, we all obviously wanted him. We are hyped that we now have. But that extra spot is going to be interesting, which, and I'll let you give your point, will lead into these sort of cheapish ideas that are being thrown around about other pitchers continue.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's kind of the whole thing. It's like, all right, we want Charlie Morton because he's killed us in the playoffs for 3 years or whatever it is, and we've seen how good he is in a regular season and in a playoffs. He's from Connecticut. He grew up a Yankee fan. We love that kind of storyline, as Garrett Cole proved last year.
Yep. Not Adam Ottavino, though.
Not Adam Ottavino. But John Heyman, I think it was last week, said that Charlie Morton's market was 8 to 10 teams have been interested. And if that's the case, it's going to be competitive. The option he had with Tampa Bay was for 1 year, $15 million, that Tampa obviously declined because they're not going to pay that much for a pitcher, especially not after a pandemic, or in a pandemic, I should say. So the Yankees, I mean, if that's that, I would expect that's going to kind of be his price range. The Yankees aren't going to get into that. They're not going to swim in that end of the pool. They're just not. We kind of have to accept that, and we shouldn't have to, but we do. So, what we'll see, guys who are going for, $5 million for 1 year, or they'll just do what I said they would do last week, which is use their young pitchers all season. And we have to sit and watch these guys, get bombed every third start. Not really interested in that.
Divisional title, baby, or no, wild card title.
I'm not really interested. I'm not interested in that, but that's just how they are. They have their process. They do not deviate from it for better or for worse.
Maybe they'll bring back Jay Happ on an affordable contract.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
God.
So yet last night on the Yanks Hot Soap, they showed a graphic, right? And Josh, you're speaking on it. Jules, you were speaking on it. He showed a graphic for Yankees projected rotation. And this would be it. Garrett Cole, Luis Severino, Jordan Montgomery, Debbie Garcia, Clark Schmidt. And then they have Severino recovering from Tommy John, of course. Now, that's what their graphic was, where if they don't get Tanaka back, if they don't get Morton, they're not going to get Bauer. We already know that. They don't make any trades. That's the rotation going into next year. I don't know about you guys. That doesn't look like a World Series.
It's not. And truthfully, I would say
It's
that's
worse.
that's not even a top 5 rotation in the American League.
It's worse
Garrett
than
Cole is
2020.
Garrett Cole is the best pitcher in baseball, or you could make a case as arguably the best pitcher in baseball. You know, Shane Bieber won the AL Cy Young this year.
Jacob deGrom.
Rah, all that stuff, Jacob deGrom, whatever. But the rest of that rotation is I'm sorry, but flat out bad, or flat out not
ready.
Flat out not worthy of praise.
Who's the fifth guy? If Severino is counted as one of the 5, he's not going to be there come until like June or July. Who is the other? Is it Herman?
Or
Herman, Herman
Jonathan
wasn't
Loaizaga or Albert Abreu or one of them.
I mean, this is going to lead to exactly what we know it's going to lead to.
Yep.
It's going to lead to them underperforming as a staff, and then come July or whatever, Severino is going to be the savior, and then he's going to be rusty because he's coming back from an extremely serious injury.
And Cashman will still say that they're getting
exactly. Round and round we go on this merry-go-round that doesn't stop or change. It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And especially, and I hate to make it a Met Yankee thing, but when you see across town the fans of the other team are in there, they think they're in on every player, and they are. At least that seems to be. At least they're not going to sign every player, but they're at least interested or talking to some of these big names. I don't like to do that kind of comparison because they play 6 times a year, so it doesn't really matter. But it is frustrating because it's the same market. The Yankees are a bigger franchise. They have more fans. They're worth more. So, what's the excuse?
Yeah. All I will say is that we talked about this last week at a minimum, or 2 weeks ago at a maximum, that I'm okay with saying that you don't have money because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
That's the case. Most people don't right now. And that's not just big major league sports teams, but it's your average Joe and everything like that. But this has been the Yankees' MO for the last now 2.5 to 3 years, going back to every single big free agent outside of Garrett Cole that they were rumored to get. And that is kind of a good transition point to where Michael Kay mentioned that he believes James Paxton, remember him, we obviously all know that he was big for them in the playoffs 2 years ago, but was pretty much an injury bug all season this year and was during most of his Yankees tenure, that Kay still believes in him and that he thinks the Yankees should discuss with Scott Boras, who is his agent, the possibility of bringing him back on injury-guarded contracts because of his injury history. And to me, one, I don't love Paxton. I think that he is A.J. Burnett adjacent in the fact that his stuff is really good and that he has the ability to be dominant at times, but has never really completely put it together for more than a handful of starts. But it's that idea that they can't just go sign a guy who's not injury prone and has a great history. They got to go after the guy who, they traded for and has a high upside, but they have to throw injury laden contracts at it and, innings limit contracts and things like that. And to me, it's like, all right, give me a break.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what if that's who you want to take a flyer on as possibly your 5th starter, I'm okay with that kind of thinking. Yeah. But that probably wouldn't be the case, and that worries me because if Michael Kay's saying it, he's probably heard it from someone in the know, and it's sort of like Jack Curry. If Jack Curry says it, it's true. So if Michael Kay says it, that worries me. I do not So let me say this. If Paxton comes back on that sort of contract, that's a 1-year deal where it's all incentive laden because of his injuries and he has to reach a certain number of innings in order to reach the full amount of money that the contract says he can get paid. I'm okay with that. Like I said, if he's coming in to compete for a rotation spot, to be a fifth starter. But if this guy's if they're gonna do this and say, all right, we have our, our number 3 or whatever,
or even number 2
up,
without Sevy there.
Well, I didn't want to say that because that would just be insane. But you're setting yourself up for failure, and that's to me is not a winning move.
I agree.
I'm ready to let go of Paxton.
Yeah.
Even regardless of the incentive, like contract and his injuries. I mean, yeah, like you said, Josh, but I'm just ready to let go of Paxton. He had a great game, 2019 ALCS Game 5.
It was Game 5, yep.
Yeah, thank you for that, James. Now go away. And now, like you said, we're hearing all this BS again. You know what I mean? Like, it's the same BS that we're starting to hear. You guys saw I said what was on the graphic. It's starting to get frustrating. And we know if Brian Cashman is looking at that graphic and he really thinks that he's there and he's like, yeah, we can win with these guys. We're content. Last year, you got your white whale. Now you got to go out on your little boat, go out there and get some more fishes. Get this rotation going so we can actually contend and win a damn World Series or get to the World Series. Let's do something, Cashman. Come on, Brian. You got it in you. Come on. That's me to Brian Cashman right there.
Well, thanks for that, E-Ray.
He has it in him, but does Hal Steinbrenner have it in him?
That's also true. And this is what in one of the articles I was reading with Bob Klaspich from NJ.com, he was saying, of course, they were talking about DJ LeMahieu and all the pitching. He was saying Cashman is still waiting on payroll business plan decisions from Hal Steinbrenner. But that will happen before Thanksgiving. So guys, in the next couple of weeks, probably before the winter meetings, we'll start to see, hear more concrete rumors about where the Yankees and these players are headed. But that's what Bob was saying.
Yeah, well, hopefully the news is good, but we don't expect that, of course.
I don't expect anything. Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Absolutely. All right. So the other big story that kind of came out this week was from the New York Post. And with rounding down on time in this week's episode of the podcast a little bit, I kind of want to throw some scenarios at you guys to see what you might think about that. And that story from the Post was that Gary Sanchez is not only potentially trade bait, but that he is heavily being shopped on the block by the New York Yankees. There was a little caveat in there that they might even release him if they don't find anybody to take it. I don't know if I fully buy that, especially because right now the Yankees don't have any plans of anybody to be a catcher for them outside of Kyle Higashioka. So I doubt they would just straight up get rid of him. But I looked it up and I saw a couple of potential trade bait scenarios that the Yankees could do in order to unload Gary Sanchez. So I'm going to give you these 3 trades, and you guys kind of let me know what you feel about this. So these are the 3 trades. I did not come up with these. These were from the World Wide Web, as we like to say. The first trade is a little crosstown rival trade with the Yankees sending Gary Sanchez to the New York Mets. And in return, the New York Mets receive Francisco Alvarez, who is the Mets' top catching prospect. And they also receive J.D. Davis, who, as we know, can play the corner outfield spots. He can play a little bit of first base. He's a pretty good bat. And I guess in that scenario, that would free them up to potentially make a move for Clint Frazier. So if I said the Yankees could get that package from the Mets for Gary Sanchez, what would you guys say? Josh hates it.
The fact that I'm hesitating probably says it's a no. I mean, look, for one, it's not going to happen because these trades just don't. These Mets-Yankees trades never happen.
Yeah.
I just don't see where J.D. Davis fits. He's another right-handed hitter who's sort of better suited to maybe not play the field. He's not going to play third because they have Urshela. He's not going to play first because he's not better than Luke Voit. He's not going to play left field. I don't think, unless, like you said, they traded Clint Frazier. So I would just say no, because I don't want another one of these right-handed hitters who, doesn't really fit anywhere. They already have Andujar for that.
I agree. Are you right?
I gotta be honest, Jules. I feel like, I've been on the Gary Sanchez train for so long, longer than you guys have this season. But I think any scenario that you're going to say, I think I'm just going to say to do it. I think,
All right.
It depends, of course. But I think I would say yes to that. I think Gary Sanchez's value is just so low right now. And I just think he needs a new scenery. We need a change. I know we don't have – that's saying, are we going to go in with Higgy next year? Are we going to get Molina? That's you got to think long-term as well. But I don't know. I might just say yes to every trade scenario. I might say yes to this one. I just think Gary Sanchez. I'm with Josh. I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think. I think Gary Sanchez is going to be a Yankee next year. I still believe that they still believe in him in some capacity. So I don't think that he's going to go anywhere. But I do think they need to change the scenery. So I would probably say yes to that.
I agree. My analysis on this is that J.D. Davis would be an interesting addition, given the fact that we know Judge and Giancarlo have been hurt multiple times this year. Might be an upgrade to have him playing in the outfield as opposed to a Brett Gardner. And I guess in that theory, you're supplementing Gary Sanchez's low to high upside with J.D. Davis's high upside, considering injuries. As far as Alvarez, doesn't make much sense considering the Yankees have literally drafted catchers the last 2 years. So to me, if I'm getting a prospect back rather than going with the Mets' top catching prospect, I probably see if they have a pitcher or an infielder who would probably be a little bit more suited for the Yankees to take a flyer on in addition to J.D. Davis in order for that to work. But those are my thoughts on that. The next trade that I saw is phrased as the Kraken goes mile high. And as that dictates, you have the Rockies receiving Gary Sanchez and, in this trade, Clint Frazier. And the Yankees are receiving John Gray, Ryan McMahon, and Tommy Doyle. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know the Yankees have been interested in John Gray in the past. I think maybe it was two off seasons ago. He was coming off of a rough year, and he was a candidate for, one of those buy low sort of things, and seems to be that case.
And I'm curious
again.
How much of that is Coors Field considering, but
yeah, I mean, you never know. This guy has pitched well before with the Rockies, so he just may not be consistent. That intrigues me a little bit more because I like the potential of what John Gray could do as a starting pitcher for you. There's obviously a significant need. Now, this isn't the guy that I would want to make the big acquisition of the offseason. But for that, I would be certainly more interested. Just the name of John Gray alone puts me into a possible yes.
Yeah, I understand. From my perspective, I think that Colorado has a lot of depth in the middle infield, so them losing McMahon, who is good and somebody who could take a flyer on, is not bad. Plus, the Yankees could use pitching help all they can. So Doyle and Gray combined, I think, are strong possibilities. The only real question is, at that point, is Frazier's value so non-existent that you can't even include him in a package for somebody like Lindor? And there was a package that we obviously did not even discuss, but that we saw today that was, I believe, him, Luis Gil, Miguel Andujar, and Albert Abreu for Francisco Lindor. So it's like, what if I'm doing Gary and Clint for John Gray plus, or Frazier and Andujar and prospects for Lindor? Which one am I doing here? It's obviously the last.
Obviously,
so,
yeah. But that makes me wonder what the value of Clint Frazier is, because so these are two different reporters proposing trades, obviously, that have probably no chance of happening. But it just makes you, all right, so what is his value? Because if Frazier's the second part of a trade with Gary Sanchez, that probably is a bad thing if that's close to reality, because Sanchez is a guy you're dumping after a very bad season when his value is so low, and you're not getting back anything spectacular. But Frazier is sort of just an add-on to make it a little bit better for the other team.
Yeah.
If that's his value, and Frazier, and somebody else is saying, well, Frazier is part of a Lindor trade, where is he really? It's probably somewhere in between, right? But if we're picking between these two hypotheticals, obviously we would rather trade. We want Lindor. We'd live with Gary and we'd want Lindor.
Yeah. You ready? What are your thoughts?
If there's no Lindor trade, I actually wouldn't do that deal. Because
you said you would do every one, and now you're already back.
I said no. That was for Gary only.
Good point.
Yes, that was for Gary Sanchez only. Now you add Clint Frazier. Me personally, as a fan, I think Clint Frazier's value is a lot higher than getting John Gray, Ryan Gaman,
agreed,
and Doyle. Right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, Doyle.
Yeah. So I would not do that deal because Clint Frazier is included. Now,
you know what? I didn't think of that when I answered that question. I would not do this trade.
Oh, wow. Oh, you just Clint Frazier?
I was just thinking Gary. I was thinking Gary and John Gray. Those were the two names that I heard. But
okay.
On second thought, no, I wouldn't do that, because why are we putting Frazier involved in this?
There you have it.
There you go.
I'm glad we said it again.
We're the 0 for 3 on that one.
I was a little nervous. I thought you guys weren't smart for a second.
Hey, whoa.
Right. Legit right. Stop. Our last one is the Angels and Yankees making a trade. This is Gary Sanchez and Luis Gil for infielder Kevin Maitan and Hector Yan. Your thoughts?
I don't know much about either of those guys, so I wouldn't be able to make an educated guess or an educated, opinion without looking up these players a little bit more. Off the top of my head, I would say no, because those guys, so they're probably going to be backup infielders. I don't want to trade my starting catcher for backup players.
Yan is a left-hander relief pitcher. Okay,
but the other name, Maitan, right? He's an infielder.
Yep.
Probably a backup, a bench guy. For me, I probably wouldn't do it, but this just goes to show you how low Sanchez's value is, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That you have to do Sanchez and a prospect just to get what is essentially amounts to a low-level infielder and a major league ready left-hander back in return. Out of these 3 trades, the one for J.D. Davis and the Mets' top catching prospect was the best.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, to not backtrack from what I said, I probably wouldn't do that trade, but I can't flip-flop, so I would probably do that trade, even not knowing anything about those 2 other guys. I said there should be a change of scenery. There's no top prospect like Clint Frazier he's not really is he? He's not really a prospect anymore.
I mean, he's not a prospect anymore, but he is a top young player in the
Yeah. So he's not included in this. So maybe I will do the deal. But no, just like Josh, I mean, I don't really know that much about these guys. So it's kind of just being like, yeah, what the hell, do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, I just want to say one thing about Maitan. He was, just looking this up, he was a big international signing by the Braves. And he was the guy, if you guys remember, he was the one who was signed by the Braves, and they were found out to be doing some nefarious activities.
Oh, I do remember this. Yep.
Who had to be,
and then they had to let him go.
He became
right?
a free agent. He became a free agent again, and the Angels signed him the second time he was made available for half of the money. So, as a professional, obviously there was no minor leagues last year, so he didn't do anything. But in 2019, in Single A, 123 games, he hit 214 with a 278 on base and a 323 slugging. Now, obviously, that was when he was 19 years old, so I don't want to judge him.
So he's got a decent ceiling based off of what his internationals stuff is.
After doing more research, I probably would make this trade because you do get a left-handed reliever out of it, and then this kid who not long ago was highly sought after as a an international free agent out of Venezuela. So that's my bad for not remembering his name. I
know how
would
to spell
now.
his name, so that's
I would
what
now
I
make
would
this.
say
I would make this trade.
to play off of you, Josh, is that in the event that Brian Cashman were to go after a trade like this, and granted, this is not Brian Cashman saying this is who I want. This is obviously the World Wide Web giving us some trade scenarios. You would think that given Cashman's track record of success in the international player pool, especially with players from Venezuela like Gleyber Torres, that would be a pretty good indication of what this kid's ceiling could be, let alone the fact that we now know that, at least as far as the Braves are concerned, they thought very highly of him enough to do shady dealings in order to get him. So
But
I agree. I think I would do it, Joe.
But it does worry me a little bit because, if we're talking about this guy as a potential trade piece for Gary Sanchez, then maybe it hasn't been going so well for him as a professional. So that's another thing to talk about. But you maybe take a chance on a guy who's only 20 years old. He will be 21 in February. So
I think given the Yankees' depth at catcher, since they have drafted catchers recently, and the fact that we saw that they have no qualms about winning games with Kyle Higashioka behind the plate, if they were to take a flyer on some high level or high ceiling prospects for Gary Sanchez to be traded elsewhere, I don't think it would be the worst case scenario out there, just because we kind of know at this point that I think Gary Sanchez's time is done, unless the Yankees, as you said last week, Josh, just say, you know what, do your thing and screw it when it comes to trying to be a good catcher.
Yeah, I mean, they gotta simplify it for him because they've complicated it every year since 2017, when the pass balls first became a problem, and you can see there's clearly an issue with what has followed. So now that's a little bit of assumption on our part to say, oh, well, the reason why he's struggling is because they keep trying to change him.
And not because he just sucks.
Right, and maybe he's just not that good. But I could see the Yankees saying, all right, well, clearly there was talent here. He's not old. He doesn't have that much mileage on him because he's not been around for that long. He's also missed a lot of time with injury. So, it's not like he's played so much that I could see them saying, like, all right, just go and be the guy that you were, or try to be the guy that you were in 2017, and we will live with your poor defense. Maybe that's a bad decision, because the Yankees' problem, in my opinion, is less of Gary's bad offense and more of the bad defense being an issue. So I would rather hit the better catcher than the better hitter, is what I'm saying.
Yep. You right? Any final thoughts?
No, just to piggyback off Josh said. So Buster Olney, ESPN's insider, like we were talking about, we don't think Gary Sanchez is really going to go anywhere. This is what he said. Whatever the roots of Sanchez's problems, repairing him as a hitter might be the biggest offseason priority for the Yankees. Other teams say that the Yankees seem intent to at least try to move ahead with Sanchez to fix him. And to that date, they haven't indicated they're ready to move on. One evaluator said, I know this, if the Yankees dumped him, I'll take him. When he's right, there are almost no catchers who hit like him. I'll take a shot at him and try to figure out what's happening with his swing and his mind. You hear that, but then his value in these hypothetical trades, right? Of course, if you release Gary Sanchez, any team would probably sign him because
And think of how many teams out there have catchers who are not that great defensively and also hit the low 200s.
Exactly. That's why I am set on I do not want to dump him. I'd rather keep him than just straight out release him.
I agree. And it was
releasing
for
him
the
makes no
Post
sense.
To put out there that the Yankees were exploring the possibility of releasing a guy who, I'm sorry, I don't love Gary Sanchez, but he still hit, double-digit home runs last year, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, it's bad business, as they would say. It's a bad business decision for them to do anything less than gain a quality major league roster player for him, or at a minimum, a high ceiling prospect.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It would make no sense to release him at all. He would get scooped up in a second. You either trade him for something that you think has a chance to be valuable to you now or in the future, or you keep him and hope that it just isn't worse than what it's been. Because if it's better, then you can live with it, you can work with it, and you can.
And how much worse could it be?
You can win, exactly, and you can win with it too if he's better.
Yeah.
So releasing makes no sense at all. You can even question if it makes sense to trade him when his value is so insignificant. It doesn't really make sense for the Yankees to do that. But money, because arbitration a second time, he made $5 million in 2020. It's going to go up in 2021 because you never make less than you did the year before in an arbitration. So they may say, all right, well, we don't want to pay him $6 million or whatever it's going to be because his production just isn't matching that money. So we'll trade him. That may be what they come to. And in this pandemic offseason, when they're penny pinching, maybe that is what will happen.
Yeah, I agree. You right?
No, you guys, you got hit it on the head there.
Well, there you go.
Sad.
You have it. It is the hot stove season, so we're hoping to crank up the heat going forward here, and hopefully in the next couple of weeks when we do the podcast, at a minimum, we have some exciting trade opportunities, or maybe even some people that the Yankees have traded for to talk about. But as far as everything else is concerned, we'll kind of go really, really quickly here. Very brief. Hall of Fame ballot came out this week. We don't need to go all in depth on who we think should and shouldn't be in there. I know somebody like me is a little bit more pro some of the steroid guys getting in there, as opposed to some other people who are a little bit more pro it just being conventional. But rather than dictate, I'm going to ask you guys a yes or no question, and then I'm going to ask you a question in regards to the final answer, so to speak. So with the ballot coming out, here's question one. Do steroid guys, and yes or no, like I said, like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens or Sammy Sosa, get on the ballot this year? Any of them?
You mean make it in?
Yeah.
No.
Make it in. No?
No, I don't think so.
All right. You ready?
No. Yeah, no. They do
Okay.
not. Unfortunately.
Well, yep, I agree. I'm big on Barry Bonds getting in. I think he is an unbelievable player and one of the best players of all time, but I think he will eventually get in. I just don't think it's this year either, which leads me to the question, who will be joining Derek Jeter, sadly, this time next year, pandemic permitting, at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony? Which players or player will be joining them, in your opinion?
Probably Kurt Schilling, I think, which as a Yankee fan would really upset me to see Derek Jeter sharing the stage with that guy. I've long tried to I couldn't leave my bias out of it. I've long tried to say that this guy didn't deserve it, but he does. And I think he will finally get over the hump this year, in a year where there really isn't much competition. So I think a lot of people will vote yes, unless the media really doesn't like this guy so much where they're like, screw it, we won't induct anyone this year.
You right?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Probably Kurt Schilling, a guy who I've hated my whole career.
Your whole career?
As a Yankee fan.
Whole career. Yeah. You right, his whole career he hated him.
My whole career I've hated my fanhood. But yeah, I think he got 70% I'm looking at last year. So he's right on the cusp. I think he gets in. Maybe before that it's Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, but we said we don't think they're going to get in. Maybe Omar Vizquel, there's a chance. He got 52.6% last year. I think he'll get more percentage, maybe in the 60% range, but I think it's only going to be Kurt Schilling, unfortunately.
Yep, I agree.
Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He really is a dick when it boils down to it. That's the best way to put it. And that's just not me saying it, but I think the reason why he's kind of been held back recently is because the writers want to make him wait an extra year because he is a dick. But when you really think about it, he's pulling at 70%. He comes back now this year as the percentage leader, and he only needs an additional 5% to be able to make it into the Hall of Fame. And obviously he was on World Series teams. We hate that he was on 04 because obviously and 01 too with the Diamondbacks. So, but he's synonymous with October baseball. He was a really good regular season pitcher too. He's just he's a tool bag when it boils down to it. And that's the reason why he should get in. And here's the thing. Personal opinions should not play into whether or not you're a Hall of Famer or not. I think for him it has as of late. But at the end of the day, he is a Hall of Fame pitcher, and he should get in. I would love to see somebody outside of him, like maybe Andy Pettitte, get in. But that is a much harder case, especially when you add in that even as clutch as he is, the steroids are a lot bigger part of Andy Pettitte's legacy with everything that happened with that, as opposed to Curt Schilling, who really was just an asshole. And that's the real reason why he hasn't gotten in yet. So I agree with you guys.
Guy.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Everything aside, he is a dick, and he is not afraid to act like a dick in public. And you know what? People see it. There's a reason why. But at the end of the day, the Hall of Fame is for baseball and nothing else. And he was a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Yeah, that's it. He is a Hall of Famer, and he will be in 2021.
Yep, I agree. So that's going to do it for us here in this another exciting edition of Our Little Yankees podcast. As always, you can listen to us on SoundCloud, and you can listen to us on our official YouTube page. But thanks to the fact we now have a beautiful, wonderful logo, we're also going to be putting up live episodes on Spotify, and we're going to be putting live episodes up on Apple Music as well. So make sure you always follow the links. Make sure you always check out our official pages. Make sure you listen to brand new episodes each and every week with myself, Julian Coltree, Josh Levin, and Eric Ray Sepulveda. Until next time, folks, we'll see you later.